They've convinced you that energy is just electricity, just motion, just science. But what if that was the greatest cover-up of all time? You've felt it. The shift in a room when someone walks in with a heavy vibe. The strange clarity after sitting alone in nature. The pull of someone's gaze when they're not even speaking. These aren't coincidences. They're evidence, subtle, powerful, and ignored on purpose. Why? Because once you understand how to use it, you're not controllable anymore. Energy manipulation isn't fantasy. It's not spiritual fluff. It's a silent technology coded into your body, mind, and environment. A technology ancient civilizations used, secret societies protected, and modern systems pretend doesn't exist. But it's still here, right under your skin, in the spaces between your words, in the pauses between your thoughts. And right now, you're either using it or it's being used on you. You've been taught to focus only on the physical, productivity, appearance, credentials. But the real power moves are happening in the invisible layers of reality, in intention, in frequency, in presence. And while most people are trapped in a world of surface-level reactions, the few who know how to shift energy, on command, can influence mood, create outcomes, and bend experiences toward their will. It's not magic, it's mechanics. There's a structure to it, a flow, and once you stop looking through the lens of what's acceptable and start experimenting like a renegade scientist of your own reality, you'll begin to notice the patterns, how your energy spikes or drains based on who you're around, what you say, even what you think. This is not about protecting your energy. It's about directing it like a focused beam, weaponized or healing depending on your intent. They don't want you to know this because it breaks their system. A system that feeds off your confusion, that needs you emotionally reactive, that profits from your spiritual amnesia. But once you get how this works, even on a basic level, you become unpredictable. And in a world of manufactured predictability, that's power. You don't need permission to learn this. You don't need crystals, gurus, or a special bloodline. You just need curiosity, and the willingness to question what you've been told is impossible. This is your reminder. Energy responds to consciousness. If you can think it, you can move it, and if you can move it, you can change everything. Let them call it nonsense. Let them roll their eyes. The truth doesn't need their approval. It only needs you to use it before it's erased from every platform, every book, and every memory that could remind you of who you really are. Now's the moment. Let's break the seal. Chapter 1. The Invisible Engine. Running. Every interaction. Long before words are spoken, something else begins to stir between people, something silent, invisible, and immediate. In every interaction, even the smallest glance or presence in a shared space, energy is the first to arrive. It travels ahead of the conversation like a messenger, setting the emotional temperature without anyone saying a word. When two people walk toward each other, even without eye contact or touch, there's already an unspoken exchange taking place. This invisible current carries information about mood, openness, tension, or even hidden agendas. Most people aren't trained to notice it, but everyone is affected by it. The tone of a conversation is often already decided by the energy shared before the first word is spoken. This is why physical touch, like a handshake or hug, is never truly the beginning. It's actually the final confirmation of what has already passed through the energetic space. Whether a hug feels warm or forced, whether a handshake feels strong or distant, is not about physical strength or politeness. It reflects an invisible handshake that already happened seconds earlier. That energetic exchange creates the true impression, and the body simply follows its lead. You may think you dislike someone based on how they speak or move, but often it's the unseen energetic message they carried into the space that shaped your entire perception of them. People walk around with energetic fields that are constantly signaling availability or resistance. These are not visible walls, but they are deeply sensed. Some people seem to naturally invite conversation, others make people avoid eye contact. This is not only about personality or body language, it's a field-based interaction. You may have noticed how some individuals feel safe to talk to, even without saying anything. That's because their energetic field is open, granting silent permission to approach. Others may be surrounded by a closed field, signaling "do not disturb," even when they're smiling. This isn't something you consciously choose to read. Your body and nervous system are doing it automatically, interpreting the space for cues and signals that go beyond behavior. Attention, in this silent world, is not something neutral. It's more like a force. It has direction, weight, and momentum. When you focus your attention on someone, you are not just observing them. You are sending something forward. That attention can nourish, support, challenge, or even pierce through someone's defenses, depending on its shape. Just as a beam of sunlight can warm or burn depending on its concentration, your attention has power depending on how it's applied. People can feel when they're being watched with admiration or judged with suspicion, even from across the room. This isn't imagination, it's an exchange of energy that moves ahead of speech. What most people don't realize is that this kind of energetic dialogue doesn't just exist between people. It lives in spaces too. Rooms carry emotional echoes. A home that's hosted frequent arguments, betrayals, or deep grief will hold an emotional tone that lingers in the air. Even if no one is currently fighting, that conflict energy has soaked into the walls, the furniture, the layout of the space. It becomes part of the environment, and the body responds to it automatically. You may walk into a house or office and feel uneasy for no clear reason, or suddenly get irritable. That's not random. It's the silent memory of previous energetic events acting on you. Spaces remember more than people admit. This silent architecture runs beneath everything. It doesn't need language, logic, or intention. It happens naturally and constantly, like wind moving across a field. You don't need to believe in it for it to shape your life. It already is. Every conversation you've had, every room you've walked into, every relationship that felt off or unexpectedly deep was shaped by this invisible layer. That's why some people feel safe instantly, and others make your stomach tighten without ever raising their voice. It's not always about behavior or personality. It's about the energetic imprint they bring with them, whether they know it or not. What we call chemistry, awkwardness, trust, or discomfort often starts here. It's not in the words, it's in the field. Before two people ever understand each other logically, they're already negotiating, aligning, or resisting each other on this energetic level. If that unseen layer is harmonious, everything else feels easier, smoother. But if there's friction there, even simple conversations become difficult. The invisible engine beneath human life is not a fantasy or metaphor. It's real, it's consistent, and it is the first thing to move in every interaction you have, whether you're aware of it or not. The truth is, we are not simply walking minds having intellectual conversations. We are energetic beings in constant transmission. The silence before you speak holds more meaning than most of the words that follow. If something feels off with a person or place, it usually is, because something has already passed between you and that field. Noticing this doesn't require training in science or belief in the mystical. It only requires slowing down just enough to recognize that, at the core of life, there is always a silent exchange shaping everything else. Chapter 2. Biological Evidence of Energy Command. The human body is not just a machine responding to external stimuli. It is a living receiver and transmitter of energy, responding in real time to forces that most people don't consciously notice. These responses are not imagined or symbolic, they're biological. When energy moves or shifts, the body reacts in measurable, physical ways. One of the clearest signs of this is microtemperature fluctuation. Skin temperature does not remain steady. Even without changes in air temperature or physical exertion, your skin may suddenly warm up or cool down. These microshifts often correspond with subtle energetic surges, either as your own energy rises or as it drops from sudden depletion. This is especially noticeable during unexpected energetic encounters, such as walking into a room with strong tension or being around someone whose presence feels heavy or overpowering. The skin reacts even when your mind hasn't yet caught up to the situation. The body knows first. Another physical clue can be found in your muscles. Muscle tension isn't always caused by injury or bad posture. In many cases, tightness in certain areas of the body is a sign that energy isn't moving freely. Energy that's trying to flow but gets blocked will often back up, and that blockage can register as tightness, stiffness, or even sharp localized pressure. You might feel sudden tightness in your neck, back, or chest without any clear cause, and in many cases, this is your body signaling that energy is stuck there. These signs often appear well before any medical condition is diagnosed. They're early alerts that something invisible is building pressure. If someone is energetically overwhelmed, their muscles may stiffen in ways that are hard to explain through physical exertion alone. The body holds the energy when the energy has nowhere to go. The eyes offer another unexpected confirmation. When someone enters a heightened energetic state, whether from incoming energy or an intense personal focus, the pupils often dilate. This dilation is not just about light sensitivity. It's a biological way of allowing more data to enter. In these moments, the eyes widen, not because of visual need, but because they are attempting to receive more from the environment. It's as though the body instinctively knows that something beyond the usual range of information is now important. This dilation can happen during deep moments of realization, unexpected energetic encounters, or even in response to another person whose field is unusually intense. The eyes, in that moment, are acting like energetic windows pulling in more than light. They're pulling in meaning. Breathing patterns also reveal much about how the body interacts with energy. Sometimes, in a moment of high energetic pressure or surprise, the breath will suddenly stop, not by choice, but automatically. This is not anxiety or fear. It's a natural response when something breaches the energetic field. A person may hold their breath without noticing, as though their body is listening more carefully. This kind of breath hold is subtle and often brief, but it signals a sudden boundary shift. The body reacts by suspending breath so it can sense what just entered or changed. It's a form of momentary recalibration, like a pause before deciding what to do next. This happens in crowds, during unexpected confrontations, or when someone intensely focused enters a space. The breath stops to feel more clearly. Another hidden signal is in the timing of movement. The body's reflexes are designed to respond quickly to the environment. But when someone is energetically drained, especially from sustained interaction with draining environments or people, their physical reactions slow down. This isn't always about fatigue in the traditional sense. It's as though the body has less available power to command immediate motion. Reaching for something, turning quickly, or reacting to sound becomes delayed, even slightly. These aren't the signs of disease or aging. They are biological indicators that energy is being used up, pulled away, or scattered. In such states, the motor system becomes slower, like a machine trying to run with reduced fuel. This can happen in subtle energetic confrontations where no words are exchanged, but energy is still exchanged heavily. All of these signals, micro-temperature changes, muscle tension, pupil dilation, breath holds, and reflex delays, form a language that the body uses to confirm energetic events. These aren't mystical ideas. They are measurable, physical responses, and they happen whether you believe in energy manipulation or not. The body doesn't wait for belief. It responds instantly, biologically, and with clear precision. It listens to what the conscious mind often ignores. This layer of feedback isn't emotional or mental. It doesn't rely on interpretation or technique. It simply occurs, always in the background, revealing that the physical form is deeply tuned into unseen exchanges. In this way, the body proves that energy interaction is not just theoretical. It's real. It's present in your skin, your breath, your eyes, your muscles, your reaction time. It marks when energy enters, when it leaves, when it sticks, and when it flows. Whether you're standing still, walking into a room, or making eye contact with another person, Your body is keeping track of what your awareness hasn't yet processed. It's not symbolic, it's biological. And the more carefully one observes, the more clear it becomes. The body does not lie about energy. It reveals it with perfect honesty. Chapter 3. Covert Ways Society Trains You to Ignore. Energy. From the moment a person enters the world, they are placed into structures that seem normal but are subtly designed to pull their awareness away from energy. This isn't a loud, obvious force. It's quiet, embedded, and constant. One of the first and most overlooked ways this happens is through the environment itself. Modern buildings, especially institutional ones, are created with materials, shapes, and lighting that break the natural connection between body and energetic perception. Fluorescent lights flicker at speeds that disturb the nervous system, even when it isn't consciously noticed. These lights push out a constant artificial tone that drowns out the body's ability to register subtle, energetic cues. The sharp corners, cold surfaces, and unnatural symmetry found in most offices, schools, and public places are not just aesthetic choices. They affect how your internal awareness operates. When someone enters these environments day after day, their inner balance becomes less sensitive. The body stops scanning for invisible signals because nothing in the environment encourages it. The subtle fades out, and the mechanical takes over. In these same buildings, particularly in schools, a second layer of disconnection is applied. The systems of education reward only what can be measured, repeated, and explained through external evidence. If a child senses something intuitively, feels a shift in energy, or becomes still because something unseen has changed, they are not praised for sensitivity. They are corrected for lack of focus. The entire model of teaching builds a wall around energetic awareness by treating it as unscientific, impractical, or imaginary. Children who have natural sensitivity to energy are often labeled as distracted, odd, or overly emotional. They learn, slowly and painfully, to trade their inner knowing for the approval that comes from sticking to the facts. Over time, this reward system conditions people to suppress anything that can't be easily seen or proven. Energy awareness doesn't go away. It gets buried under years of retraining the mind to believe only what it can touch or measure. Another force that slowly splits the connection between self and energy is the flood of digital exposure. Phones, apps, social feeds, these things don't just occupy attention, they fragment it. The constant swipe, scroll, and shift in focus trains your field to break apart into dozens of shallow fragments. Each piece of information takes a small slice of your attention, and before long, the ability to hold deep, energetic focus is lost. It's not about distraction alone. It's about dilution. The more a person trains their energy to respond to fast, fragmented input, the less they are able to access the quiet, steady awareness needed to sense or shape energy. This fragmentation builds slowly, but its effect is deep. People may not feel different at first, but their ability to stay tuned into anything beyond the surface becomes weaker. Deep perception, which once came naturally, now feels foreign, or worse, non-existent. And so they scroll again, searching for something they've unknowingly trained themselves to forget how to feel. Time is another system that breaks the natural rhythm of energetic perception. In a world obsessed with deadlines, efficiency, and productivity, there is no room left to notice the quiet cues of the energetic world. The pressure to always be on time, to always be doing something, compresses the body's inner space. It tightens awareness into linear tunnels. Sensitivity becomes a liability when there's a schedule to keep. The cult of productivity doesn't allow for long silences, subtle observations, or inner shifts. It trains people to move fast and respond faster. In this pace, energy is always the first thing sacrificed, not because people don't care, but because they don't realize what's being pushed out. The more rushed life becomes, the more invisible energy becomes. The ability to feel, sense, or notice subtle change disappears under the pressure to get things done. It's not a personal failure, It's a structural one, embedded in nearly every modern system. Even the words people are taught to use become tools that block energy awareness. Language, especially in its most common forms, redirects inner perception into fixed concepts. Energetic experiences, which are often nonverbal and fluid, become difficult to describe, and so people stop trying. Instead, they adopt phrases that sound logical but erase the truth of what they actually felt. For instance, someone who felt a shift in the room might say, "I guess I was just tired," because that's a socially acceptable explanation. Words like weird vibe, off energy, or strange feeling are dismissed as vague, even though they point to real perception. Over time, the language people are surrounded by stops them from identifying their own experiences. They begin translating energy into logic before they even realize what they felt. This isn't just a communication issue, it's a perceptual one. If something can't be named or validated with the right words, it becomes something the mind learns to ignore. Every layer of society, its design, its rules, its technologies, its values, even its words, is shaped to make energy awareness feel irrelevant or imaginary. It is not done maliciously in every case. Often, it's just tradition or efficiency. But the effect is the same. People grow up believing that energy is not real simply because they've been immersed in systems that never reflect it back to them. What can't be seen, what can't be quantified, what can't be described with the accepted language is quietly erased from awareness. People are not trained to block energy. They are trained to stop noticing it. And this training is so complete that most don't even remember they ever had that awareness. In daily life, these systems become invisible, like wallpaper you've seen for so long you no longer notice it's there. People move through buildings that drain their field, learn from institutions that discourage inner knowing, engage with digital tools that scatter their perception, follow time systems that erase sensitivity, and use language that conceals what they truly experience. Each piece alone may not seem harmful, but together they form a powerful framework that breaks the natural bond between a person and their ability to recognize energetic truth. What begins as small moments of tuning out becomes a lifelong habit of tuning away. Not because people don't care about energy, but because they were never given permission to value it. The design did the work for them. The result is a population trained not to look beyond the surface, not to listen to the subtle, not to trust the invisible. And in that silence, the reality of energy remains, ignored, but still very much present. Chapter 4. Weaponized Energy, How It's Used Against You. Without consent, there exists a layer of energy interaction that most people never realize is happening. It's subtle, invisible, and yet it can alter your state of being without your permission. Energy, by its very nature, is neutral. It can support, uplift, or distort. But in many unseen instances, energy is shaped and used in ways that drain others without them even noticing. These manipulations are not always done with conscious awareness by those who carry them out. In many cases, they are repeated patterns or habits rooted in energetic survival rather than malicious intent. Still, the effect remains the same, a quiet theft of your clarity, your presence, and your inner strength. One of the most common forms this takes is what could be called the false empathy loop. It looks like care, but it's actually extraction. When someone repeatedly projects their distress, pain, or emotional chaos outward, they create a kind of open energetic vacuum around them. If you're sensitive, even slightly, this vacuum can tug at your own energy field without you knowing it. The moment you sense their pain, your energy leans forward. But this pull isn't about mutual support. It's about filling something they haven't learned to carry themselves. Over time, they may unconsciously begin to seek this connection, not to heal, but to feed. It becomes a cycle. Their distress pulls you in, your presence soothes them, and they release nothing of their own weight. They just transfer it. The false empathy loop isn't about true emotional connection. It's an energetic hook dressed in the clothing of care. Sometimes the weaponization is even quieter. It hides inside everyday words. A simple question like, "Are you okay?" may seem harmless, even kind. But in certain moments, that question carries more than words. It can act as an energetic anchor, planting a subtle suggestion that you are not okay, that something must be wrong, or that you've shown weakness even when you haven't. This isn't always done intentionally, but energy can ride on language like a hidden passenger. These small, seemingly innocent phrases can act as contracts, placing ideas into your field that weren't there before. And once the seed is planted, your energy starts reacting to it. You might begin to question your own state, even if nothing was off to begin with. In this way, casual conversation becomes a vehicle for energetic manipulation, cloaked in politeness or concern. There's also a more deliberate form of energetic misuse that happens in certain types of interaction, where one person is carrying heavy guilt, shame, or tension. They may not want to hold it anymore, and so they initiate what can be thought of as a ritualized guilt transfer. It doesn't look like a ritual. It may come through a sigh, a pause, a well-timed statement, or a perfectly placed silence that carries weight. Without speaking directly, the other person releases their discomfort, but instead of resolving it, they push it into your field. You might suddenly feel heavy, tired, or low without explanation. That's because they've used the interaction as a transfer point. Energetically, they walk away lighter, and you walk away with something that was never yours. This kind of manipulation doesn't need words. It only needs energetic timing. The person leaves feeling relieved, but you were the container that took their load. Another method, used more often than most would believe, involves the quiet erasure of your presence. This is not physical disappearance. It's energetic dimming, when someone subtly compresses your energy field in a way that makes others stop noticing you. You might be speaking, and suddenly people talk over you. You may walk into a room and feel unseen, even when you're standing in clear view. These moments are often explained away logically, but the truth behind them can be energetic. A manipulator, sometimes without saying anything, projects a compressive force into your space. This force wraps around your field and pulls it inward. As a result, your energetic signature weakens and your presence fades from others' awareness. It's not that you've changed, it's that something was pushed into your field to reduce your visibility. This tactic is quiet but deeply effective. It can cause you to question your own worth, when in fact, your light was only hidden under a pressure that wasn't yours. Then there is the method of energetic disorientation. This happens through rapid changes in conversation, topic, or tone, especially when combined with language that overwhelms. The goal here is not clarity, it's scattering. When someone bombards you with information, quick shifts in dialogue, or emotionally loaded words all at once, your internal system begins to scramble. Your energy tries to track too many threads at once and loses its center. This is not just confusion, it's engineered disarray. The manipulator may appear charismatic or intense, but their real effect is to fracture your focus. And in that split second where your field is pulled in too many directions, you become more open to suggestion, more easily influenced, and less rooted in your own perception. This tactic doesn't need physical force. It just needs enough noise to unseat your energy from its grounded place. And once unseated, your defense is lower, not by choice, but by energetic overload. All of these manipulations rely on one key principle. The person on the receiving end does not give conscious permission. That's what makes them different from mutual energy exchanges. They happen quietly, often within seconds, and they rarely trigger logical suspicion. There are no obvious signs, no flashing alarms, just a slow draining, a sudden fogginess, a strange tension, or a feeling of being smaller than you were a moment ago. These signs may not even be connected to the other person at first glance. That's the nature of energetic misuse. It happens behind the curtain of words, through the rhythm of emotion, and within the hidden structures of interaction. Over time, this kind of invisible energy warfare can wear down your natural clarity and strength. You may begin to feel off-center in places that once felt neutral. You may question yourself in moments where you once felt confident. These shifts don't come from nowhere. They are the result of small, repeated breaches into your field. Each moment where energy is pulled without consent, where words are used to plant doubt, where presence is dimmed without reason, these moments stack up. They shape your sense of self not by attacking it directly, but by draining it slowly. The world is full of energetic currents that are constantly moving, merging, and shifting through interaction. But not all of them are supportive. Some are tools shaped to pull, scatter, and compress. And when those tools are used without awareness or consent, the result is a quiet form of theft, one that doesn't take your possessions, but takes your light, your clarity, and your place in the moment. Understanding that this exists is not about blame. It's about naming what was once invisible. And once it's named, the shape of it becomes clear, not through theory, but through the unmistakable feeling that something real has moved within you that was not yours to carry. Chapter 5. Energy Sculpting. Precision Control in Real Time. There is a level of interaction with energy that happens beyond tools, rituals, or spoken guidance, a level where the body, thought, and presence itself become the sculptor. In this space, energy is not just something one senses or observes. It is something shaped in real time. This is not mystical, and it does not rely on belief. It is the direct use of subtle influence through physical, mental, and atmospheric precision. This chapter explores how energy environments can be altered deliberately, with no physical objects, only the fine-tuned engagement of presence. When shaped with care, these adjustments affect the emotional, mental, and even physical atmosphere around a person, often without anyone consciously recognizing what changed. The power of micro-stillness lies in its invisibility. It is not about freezing the body dramatically, but rather reducing movement at precise, intentional moments. When someone pauses just slightly longer than expected, perhaps while reaching for a cup, standing before speaking, or turning toward another. This slight stillness creates a small vacuum in the field. Attention is pulled toward the source of the stillness, not by sound or speech, but by the natural magnetism of stopped motion. In a world of constant motion, the absence of movement becomes magnetic. The field around this moment begins to compress and bend, not outward in chaos, but inward toward presence. This creates a center of gravity. Others in the environment, whether aware of it or not, begin to slow their own energy to match the still point. Micro-stillness does not demand attention. It invites it by subtly changing the rhythm of the room. It marks a shift. It signals something important is occurring, even before words are spoken or actions taken. The eyes are another silent tool for sculpting group energy. They do not merely observe, they direct. The gaze, when used with exactness, can function like a current that steers collective focus. If someone looks sharply toward a point in the room, others' attention is often drawn there without understanding why. But this is more than just visual cueing. It is directional energy shaping. The eyes carry a silent pulse that can be felt, not just seen. When a person holds their gaze on someone else with soft strength, they do not dominate, they steady. If that gaze shifts to the group and then to a specific corner or individual, a silent recalibration occurs. The emotional tone begins to harmonize toward the direction of the gaze. This does not require facial expression or spoken direction. It is the vector of awareness transmitted through the eyes, which realigns disjointed energy in the room. In groups, even subtle eye focus can prevent emotional spiraling, disarm tension, or anchor shared presence, all without uttering a word. Within the body, there is an unspoken rhythm, the heartbeat, the blink rate, and the flow of breath. These internal pulses, when tuned to the external environment, act like a silent dial. Matching your internal frequency to the room's energy can shift control invisibly. If a room is scattered or anxious, and someone enters with a steady, calm pulse, a slower blink, longer breath cycles, quieter heartbeats, an unseen alignment begins to take place. The nervous systems of those nearby detect this rhythm, even unconsciously. The field begins to mirror it. This is not manipulation, it is calibration. No words are used, no overt signals are given, but as the internal rhythm of one person remains coherent and consistent, the collective pulse of the environment begins to echo it. This matching is not about changing yourself to fit in. It's about holding a frequency stable enough that the room adjusts around it. It is a live shaping of the unseen current. Inside the mind, thought is often imagined as a single stream, but that stream can branch. When someone weaves multiple streams of thought simultaneously, their communication carries more than one layer of meaning. While one part of the mind speaks plainly, another part is threading symbols, emotional cues, or tonal shifts through the delivery. This layered thinking injects complexity into the field. It's not confusion, it's sculpting. The energy around this type of thought weaving becomes multidimensional. Listeners may hear the words, but they also feel something between the words. It may come as a pull, a curiosity, a silence inside them that wasn't there before. The person weaving thought is not trying to be mysterious. They are crafting presence that holds more than one truth at once. They are building a landscape of energy inside their own mind, and it flows into the environment not as a wave, but as a network. These threads can bind, lift, soften, or stir, but they always do something, even if what they do remains unspoken. Silence itself is a final sculpting element, perhaps the most misunderstood. Many think silence is absence, but when applied with precision, it becomes weight. It is possible to thicken or thin the atmosphere of a space through the way silence is used. If someone pauses at a moment of importance, not out of hesitation, but out of measured intent, the silence begins to build pressure. That pressure is not aggressive, it is dense. Others begin to feel it in their chest, their throat, or in the mental space between thoughts. Silence, when held without flinching, becomes a wall or a bridge, depending on the energy carried in it. It can slow decisions. It can amplify presence. It can bring hidden feelings to the surface. When used differently, silence can also lighten a room, making things feel less urgent, more open. It can strip away noise not just in sound, but in emotional charge. The same absence becomes a different kind of presence, depending on how the silence is held. A dense silence invites pause. A spacious silence invites expansion. The sculptor of energy knows which is needed without needing to name it. All these techniques, when combined, create a living system of energy sculpting. But they do not rely on outside tools or rituals. They use the subtle, invisible architecture of the moment itself. The body, the gaze, the pulse, the thought, the silence, these are not accessories. They are instruments of precision. The one who uses them is not separated from the field. They are part of it. And it is through that unity that real-time shaping becomes possible. Not through command, not through intention, but through exactness in presence. Chapter 6. Breaking Energy Loops that keep you in repetition. There are patterns in life that seem to repeat without explanation. A person might find themselves in similar situations with different people, encountering the same challenges, emotions, or outcomes as if caught in a cycle they never consciously chose. These are not coincidences. They are energetic loops, structures that operate beneath awareness and keep experiences cycling until their structure is recognized and disrupted. These loops are not created through decisions or intentions. They form through unexamined resonance, through repeated energetic signals that lock into reality and invite back their own echo. Energetic echo traps are one of the most overlooked forms of this repetition. They are not just memories or habits, they are living signals that bounce back from the environment. These signals are emitted through thought patterns, subtle behaviors, tone of voice, and emotional frequency. When a person carries an unresolved emotional imprint, such as betrayal, guilt, or rejection, that energetic frequency pulses outward, even if they don't speak of it or think about it. The field around them begins to match that tone. This frequency acts like a silent broadcast, and life responds by arranging experiences that match it. The person might feel stuck in a cycle of being misunderstood, abandoned, or overlooked without knowing why. It's not because they expect it. It's because the energy of the original event was never neutralized. The echo comes not from belief, but from vibrational continuity. The experience keeps repeating because the signal keeps looping, and the signal keeps looping because it's being unconsciously fed. Some of these loops did not even begin with the individual running them. Inherited field code refers to the energetic structures passed down from family systems, environments, and cultural fields. These patterns operate like background programs that were accepted without consent. When a child grows up witnessing a certain emotional dynamic, such as silence and conflict, over-responsibility, or self-erasure, that becomes the normal energetic script, even if it was never consciously agreed to. These scripts embed themselves into the person's energetic field, not as memories, but as operating systems. The person may not remember how or when they learned it, but the field repeats it with precision. They find themselves responding in the same way over and over, not because they chose to, but because their energetic blueprint was shaped to expect and allow it. These inherited codes do not need memory or thought to run. They function through recognition. The field remembers even when the mind does not, and as long as the code remains active, it summons familiar scenarios to keep the loop alive. There are also physical objects that anchor these loops. Loop trigger objects may seem harmless or sentimental on the surface, a gift from someone, a piece of clothing, a photo, or even a song. But these items hold energy signatures. When encountered, they emit a field that syncs with the original emotional context in which they were formed. A person might touch an object and suddenly feel a wave of emotion or find themselves thinking in old patterns they thought were long gone. The object itself did not create the loop. It activates the memory within the field. It serves as a doorway, calling the loop back online. Even when consciously ignored, these items keep the field in subtle alignment with the past. Their presence creates a soft gravity that pulls the individual into familiar energetic behaviors without warning. It's not about nostalgia. It's about re-entry. These objects are often scattered unnoticed in daily life, quietly weaving the old circuit back into play. Language also plays a deeper role than most recognize. Within social groups and conversations, humor and sarcasm can serve as tools for subconscious loop maintenance. This is not about jokes being harmful, it's about the energy behind them. When a group repeatedly laughs at someone's failure, bad luck, or old habits, even if done playfully, it reaffirms the energy identity attached to that loop. The laughter becomes a contract. Each repetition of the joke reinforces that this is who you are in that system. Even the person being joked about may participate, laughing at themselves, unaware that they are energetically agreeing to the role being assigned. Over time, this repetition forms an energetic enclosure. The group's shared laughter creates a closed system in which certain behaviors, struggles, or traits are kept alive through performance. It is not cruelty, it is repetition, masquerading as entertainment. These loops become harder to see because they hide behind humor, but the loop continues as long as the laughter follows the same path. Another form of looping hides within moments that were never completed. These are unfinished energy gestures, interactions that were cut short, withheld, or left unresolved. They do not disappear. Energy that begins to move but never lands remains suspended in the field, circulating back until it finds a way to resolve. A conversation interrupted in anger, an apology never voiced, a truth swallowed out of fear. These all create open circuits. They hum quietly beneath awareness, generating small echoes that feed the loop. The field holds the posture of that unfinished moment. The throat may tighten when reminded of it. The body may subtly contract. The person might find themselves replaying arguments in their mind or imagining what they should have said. This is not the mind obsessing. It is the energy seeking closure. The loop will continue to surface similar scenarios, not as punishment, but as opportunity. But without awareness of the loop's presence, each new scenario only reinforces the unfinished gesture, not resolve it. The repetition isn't stuck because the person is weak. It's stuck because the energy remains open-ended. Each of these forms, echo traps, inherited code, trigger objects, looped humor, and unfinished gestures, acts as a thread in a larger tapestry of unseen repetition. They are not metaphors or emotional states. They are real energetic structures, shaped by resonance, maintained by attention, and triggered by specific frequencies in the environment. They do not require belief to function. They operate through pattern recognition, subtle magnetism, and the momentum of unresolved energetic charge. They can persist for years or decades without being seen for what they are, and their power lies in their invisibility. The loops do not announce themselves. They simply keep repeating until something interrupts their flow, not by force, but by revealing the structure. Only when the shape of the loop is fully seen can its momentum begin to slow. Until then, it continues, not out of choice, but because energy, left unredirected, always follows the path it knows. Chapter 7. Energy as Architecture, Building Outcomes in Advance Energy can take shape long before events unfold. It does not wait for plans, strategies, or words. It begins to organize itself through intentionless presence, through the unspoken architecture of what is already being held within a person's internal field. This architecture silently builds the shape of what will likely happen next. Without needing to express it or explain it, the outcome is preloaded energetically. It is not about desire or wanting, it is about design. When someone holds a structure clearly within themselves, others begin to respond to it as if it were already real. This is the quiet foundation of energetic architecture, the unseen structure that starts forming reality before action arrives. Before any conversation begins, the field is already broadcasting. The energetic blueprint of a person's internal certainty shapes the tone others step into. It's not always about confidence in the usual sense. It's about coherence. When the field is internally structured with a sense of outcome already built, those around it often respond in alignment, even if they don't know why. People may agree more easily, feel more trust, or take cues without needing to be directed. This is not manipulation. It is resonance. The field, when clearly organized around a result, begins to form the path beneath others' feet. Words become secondary. Even silence carries weight when the architecture is well formed inside. The result begins unfolding not because of action, but because others sense where the structure is already going and unconsciously choose to follow it. The space itself can carry instructions. Spatial energy programming uses the arrangement of objects, light, sound, and openness to deliver messages without speech. When a room is set up with purpose, it gently shapes how people move, think, and feel within it. Chairs facing a certain direction, the distance between objects, the level of noise or stillness, all of these communicate something subtle. For example, a circle of chairs may invite openness and equality. A single chair facing many suggests leadership or attention. These arrangements are not just practical, they emit energetic cues that shape the outcome of what happens inside that space. The space becomes part of the architecture. People respond not because they are told to, but because the energy of the room tells their body how to respond before their mind catches up. The space does not just hold people, it guides them. When the spatial design is aligned with a specific outcome, the people inside it are quietly invited into that outcome without needing to be told. The body holds another kind of architecture, one that speaks through the senses. Outcome anchoring with sensory echoes allows the field to stabilize around a specific direction by embedding it into sound, motion, and even scent. When a repeated motion is paired with a tone of voice or a specific environmental cue, the energy tied to that pattern becomes easier to recall and harder to disrupt. The outcome becomes more than an idea. It becomes something the field remembers through sensation. A scent associated with calmness, a specific tone of music linked to confidence, or a physical gesture that carries clarity, all of these stabilize a direction without needing explanation. The sensory echoes do not create the outcome, but they reinforce the energetic trail toward it. The senses give the energy something to cling to, something to return to when doubt or distraction appears. These anchors do not require focus or awareness. They operate like bookmarks in the energetic field, returning the structure to its intended shape when the environment becomes unpredictable. Sometimes outcomes are not built through structure alone. They are woven into memory through rhythm. Memory loop injection is the process of embedding a future direction into someone's mental field so subtly that they later recall it as if it were self-created. This does not happen through persuasion. It happens through repetition, timing, and pattern. When a phrase or idea is introduced in a rhythmic way, repeated once, then echoed again later, the mind begins to treat it as familiar. Familiarity opens the door to acceptance, and once accepted, the idea begins to feel internal. It becomes something someone believes they arrived at themselves. This does not mean the idea was hidden or deceptive. It means it was delivered in a way that allowed the person's internal system to adopt it without resistance. The memory loop begins playing the idea back at later moments, and because of its rhythm, it feels natural. The idea begins to shape behavior, not because it was enforced, but because the energetic pattern of it was installed with care. The result is an outcome that enters through memory instead of force. Even without speaking or doing anything, the field of a person can guide the energy of a room. Ambient field encoding is a form of influence that happens without engagement. It is not about sending messages with intention. It is about becoming the field that already holds the result. When someone enters a space holding a clear inner structure, their field emits that structure silently. Others may not sense it clearly, but they react to it. A meeting may go more smoothly, a difficult person may become more open, or a stalled project may regain momentum, not because anyone said the right thing, but because the field began to pull the timeline into alignment. This kind of energetic presence does not demand or instruct. It simply becomes the version of reality where the desired outcome is already stable. It reshapes the collective tone, not through direction, but through atmosphere. Others begin to respond to that atmosphere as if it were setting the emotional and behavioral temperature. This does not require effort. It requires precision. The clearer the energetic design within, the more the ambient field begins to bend the room toward that outcome as if it were gravity. All these forms of energetic architecture exist in the subtle layer beneath speech, beneath action, and beneath strategy. They are not based on belief or preference. They are based on resonance. The field always carries a shape. When that shape is designed with precision, it does not need to be explained. It transmits itself through atmosphere, arrangement, repetition, sensation, and coherence. The result is a quiet structuring of reality that moves others toward an outcome that was never spoken aloud, but already exists in the energetic infrastructure. This is not about controlling people or pushing desires. It is about becoming the structure that invites alignment without needing anything in return. The outcome is not a destination. It is a design already being lived in advance. Chapter 8. The Imminent Deletion of Energy Knowledge. The quiet removal of deep energy knowledge is not loud, dramatic, or filled with announcements. It happens subtly, almost invisibly. Search engines, once vast portals of information, now act more like filters than gateways. Many key phrases that once led to rich understandings now loop back to blank spaces or unrelated content. Terms that used to yield pages of thought-provoking material are now replaced by surface-level explanations that hold no energetic depth. This isn't about blocking a website. It's about guiding attention away from anything that carries too much energetic clarity. The erasure isn't through deletion, it's through misdirection. The user doesn't realize the path has been rerouted. What's lost is not just information, but access to energy itself. Because energy concepts cannot be learned through logic alone, the absence of the correct doorway becomes a form of erasure. The right phrase, when lost or hidden, breaks the trail that led to understanding. Within the academic world, another form of erasure takes place, one based not on silence, but on mockery. When something is consistently ridiculed, it no longer needs to be censored. Energy studies, unless reduced to chemistry or mechanics, are often dismissed with a smile or a joke. This method of dismissal makes questioning dangerous for those within institutions. Funding disappears, researchers avoid the topic, and students are warned not to take such paths seriously. It creates a silent zone around the subject, not by law, but by shame. Once something becomes laughable, it loses its place at the table. But the damage is deeper than just public perception. Ridicule causes internal hesitation. Even those curious enough to sense there is truth behind the laughter often step back to protect their credibility. This inner withdrawal helps erase energy knowledge more completely than any rule ever could. Sometimes energy knowledge is not removed, but replaced. Censorship now wears the mask of redefinition. Words like resonance, field, and pattern recognition that once pointed directly to living energy systems are now reshaped to fit narrow psychological meanings. This watered-down language strips them of their multidimensional strength. A concept that once reached into the fabric of experience now sits flat on the page, safely tucked into mental frameworks. The language is allowed to remain, but it no longer points to what it once did. This is a slow disintegration of potency. Over time, people forget that these words had depth. They use the same terms, but the meanings are hollow. Redefinition creates a ghost version of the original truth, visible but untouchable. Those who feel that something is missing often cannot name what it is, because the words that once held the doorway have been emptied out. The digital systems that organize and control content now play a different role than they once did. AI moderation tools built to recognize and remove so-called misinformation have expanded their reach. While designed to protect, they also operate without understanding nuance. Energy knowledge often uses symbols, metaphors, and layered language that doesn't fit the approved models. This triggers removal, restriction, or shadow suppression. The content is not banned, it simply stops being seen. Algorithms scan for patterns and decide, based on rules they did not create, what should be limited. Many energy teachings are flagged because they fall outside the standardized frameworks of science or mental health. But unlike a human reviewer, an automated system does not pause to consider depth. It deletes or hides based on parameters. This type of control doesn't just remove ideas, it shapes the direction of thought itself. Over time, the absence of certain expressions changes what people even consider possible, not because they were told not to believe it, but because they never saw it to begin with. With digital platforms narrowing and formal education rejecting the subject, the preservation of real energy knowledge falls into its oldest form, oral transmission. This kind of sharing cannot be indexed, scanned, or flagged. It moves person to person, eye to eye, word to word. It may not carry credentials or public recognition, but it holds something more vital, direct energetic imprint. When someone speaks from a place of true internal understanding, the words themselves are only part of what is past. The energy woven into the voice, the presence, the timing, all of it becomes the container for the knowledge. This kind of learning cannot be duplicated by machines or absorbed through shallow reading. It must be experienced live, and because of that, it becomes harder to destroy. But it is also more vulnerable to disappearance, because it lives in the bodies and memories of those who carry it. If the line of oral transmission breaks, the knowledge does not simply go into hiding, it dissolves. That is the danger, but that is also the protection. Because this form of knowledge does not live in headlines or search results. It lives in presence, in relationship, and in sacred repetition. The erasure is not happening through fire or censorship walls. It is happening through subtle mechanisms that seem harmless on the surface: academic doubt, algorithmic preference, polite rewording. But underneath, the result is the same. The trail to energy knowledge grows colder. Each time a phrase is emptied, a teaching is mocked, A term is misused, or a post is quietly suppressed, the energetic current that once flowed freely becomes harder to find. What is being deleted is not just information, it is access to a deeper level of perception. And when that access disappears, what remains is a world that feels flatter, smaller, and more disconnected. Not because something new has been added, but because something essential has been silently removed.